science can't fully explain to you the phenomenon of gravity. There's so many things that are realities that we experience on a day-to-day basis that science hasn't figured out. So if science hasn't figured out gravity, how are we expecting science to prove or be able to explain something as grand as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of science and knowledge? Okay, so this is where we need to put our intellect in place. There's this big discussion amongst scholars that where does intellect and revelation fall? Where does your intellect fall? Where is revelation? Because there's one group of people who are known as the rationalists. To them, if revelation cannot be rationalized, then what we do with revelation is we pick it up and we throw it out. That's what we do. So you'll find some rationalists in their tafasir, when they talk about the story of Abraha and the elephants. You guys know that story? أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ, and how those elephants were destroyed with birds that came with 3 pebbles, one in the beak and one in each foot, and they dropped them and those birds were destroyed. So there are some rationalists who read this and they say, this is irrational. How can a bird carry 3 stones and drop 3 stones and knock out an elephant? That doesn't make any sense. The only way this could make sense is if this is a metaphor, and rather than accepting the verse and the very clear, openly acknowledged narrative, the people who were there, they witnessed, they saw this. These were people who ended up becoming Sahaba later on as well. The people who are witnessing this, they're saying that this is what happened, but a rationalist, rather than accepting that for revelation, what does he say? And I've read this with my own eyes, by the way, that what this actually was a sort of smallpox. It was an illness that the elephants experienced because of which they all died. There were no actual birds and no actual stones involved. And Mi'raj is the whole thing of the Prophet going in a single moment from Makkah Mukarramah to Bayt al-Maqdis, from there to the 7 heavens and come back all within a few moments. This couldn't happen in reality, so this all must be a vision. It must have all been a dream. Because the human intellect can't grasp it, so then we put a barrier there to revelation. So the revelation then becomes restricted and limited to our intellect. And that is a huge flaw. So what do we learn? We're not saying that we're going to kick out revelation because of our intellect. And neither are we going to be the second group, and what they do is that they take their intellect and throw it out and they say we're just going to rely on revelation, period. There are some people who just rely solely on revelation. They want nothing to do with intellect. They don't want to think about it. They say stop thinking about the deen. Stop trying to be intellectual when it comes to the religion. Just look at what the word says and practice it. In Arabic, the revelation is what we call naql. And reason is what we call aql. What do we call reason? Intellect in Arabic? Aql. What do we call revelation? Naql. Shaykh Hamza Yusuf said something very beautiful. He said, we have aql and naql. Some people, they refuse to use their aql, they only want to rely on naql, we call them knuckleheads. Right? People who only rely on naql, we call them knuckleheads. Because that's going to make a big mess out of your religion too. There has to be a harmony. And this was the approach of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. All scholars of Islamic tradition, Orthodox Islam, they took approach where they found a way to harmonize between the intellect and also revelation. And they found explanations. But ultimately, if the verse of the Quran was very clear and it could not be interpreted, and science contradicted that, the Quran says very clearly, you will be resurrected from your grave. And science says that's impossible. You cannot bring someone back to life. The Muslims, where they give importance to the brain, and they always had an intellectual and very smart discussion, at the end of the day, when the two clash, which one did they side with? Revelation. They trusted the Quran. That if the Quran is saying it, I have no doubt in it at all, we will be resurrected, and that's going to be our ground. Learn to keep your intellect in check. That's what I want to say to you all. Learn to trust revelation. Learn to trust Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that you have to reject it. Okay? The world doesn't revolve around you. Neither should you be, and I speak to myself as well, neither should we be so egoistic that every issue has to be intellectually understood by our limited understandings. If you're struggling to find out reasoning behind your religion, I'm not saying blindly follow it. I'm saying go and study it. Read it. And if at some point you find that your reason contradicts the clear command of the Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you there is no relationship with your spouse while in menstruation. And your reason is telling you there's nothing harmful in that. At the end of the day, which one do you follow? You follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ are telling you that same gender relationships are not permitted. Your intellect is telling you and society is telling you it's okay, it's normal. Don't just throw revelation out the window like that. Let revelation mean something to you. Let revelation, someone might come and tell you that, oh, you know what? Pork is actually a healthy meat to have. It has so many X, Y, and Z benefits. If revelation has told you no, then learn to submit yourself to that no. This whole thing of being able to rationalize every part of the religion becomes a nasty role, becomes a nasty place to be. I've sat with people who hold this sort of an approach, who aren't willing to leave anything to revelation at all. They want to be able to rationalize everything. And it's just a matter of time before they put themselves outside of Islam. Okay? So yes, our deen does have an intellectual part. And we will discuss that intellectual part. This will happen during this class, it will happen during your halaqas, whatever class you attend, you will find your imams intellectually engaging you. Imam Suyuti rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi, Allama ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullahi alayhi, Hafiz ibn Kathir rahmatullahi alayhi, Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. There are so many of them who were, Imam Razi, he was a mind-blowing intellectual. Someone asked him the tafsir of Nurun ala Nur. You know the ayah of Surah Nur, Nurun ala Nur, Allahu Nuru samawati wal ard. He said Nurun ala Nur, light upon light. That means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us an intellect to understand revelation. That's what makes it light upon light. Allah gave us reason to understand revelation. Such beautiful understanding of it. Always trust Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Let reason play a part in the growth, in your spiritual growth, but let revelation always trump reason if reason is having a tough time understanding clear and proven, absolutely sahih and sarih revelation. Submit yourself to revelation. Drop your ego. Just as we do sajda in salah, do sajda with your reason in front of revelation. Submit yourself in front of revelation.